The first thing I remember about that night is the knife against my stomach, and the second is my sister screaming, "Everything is mine." What I didn't understand then was that the knife wasn't the worst part. 9 months later, I would stand in a police evidence room staring at something that made my hands shake so badly I could barely hold the photograph. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Cendra Bensley, I'm 34, and until that night in Savannah, Georgia, I honestly believed family meant you were safe around the people who knew you best. My sister, Marissa, had always been the favorite. She got the bigger bedroom, the nicer car, the family vacations, even the excuse whenever she crossed a line. I learned early that being the responsible daughter meant swallowing things and keeping peace. So when I found out I was pregnant after years of quietly hoping it would happen, I kept the news private. My husband, Ryan, and I wanted one peaceful month before telling everyone. Then my mother called about Marissa's birthday dinner and begged me to come. "She needs you there," she said. I should have listened to the strange hesitation in her voice. The dinner was at an upscale restaurant overlooking the Savannah River, and everything seemed normal at first. Marissa wore a designer dress, our parents laughed beside her, and everyone toasted her new promotion. Then my mother stood up and announced that Marissa deserved everything this family had to offer. Marissa looked directly at me. Her smile disappeared. She stood, walked toward my chair, and pulled a small knife from beneath the tablecloth. Before I could move, she pressed it toward my pregnant belly and whispered, "You always take what belongs to me." Then she raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Everything is mine." I froze. But what happened next made even my father turn pale. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then my father slammed his palm against the table and shouted, "Marissa, put that down." She didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on mine, cold and furious, while the restaurant around us seemed to disappear. Ryan was already on his feet, but my mother grabbed his arm and whispered, "Don't make this worse." That sentence still bothers me more than the knife. Don't make this worse. As if I had caused it. As if my pregnancy, my sister's jealousy, and a blade pointed at my stomach were somehow a family disagreement we needed to manage quietly. Marissa finally lowered the knife when a waiter rushed over. But before security could reach us, she leaned close and whispered, "You have no idea what you took from me." I wanted to ask what she meant, but then I noticed something strange. Her hand was shaking. Not with anger. With fear. My father noticed it too. He stepped between us and told everyone we were leaving. Outside, Ryan kept asking if I was okay, while I stood beside the parking lot, one hand over my stomach, trying to understand what had just happened. Then my mother came running after us. She looked at me, then at Ryan, and said something that made my blood run cold. "Cendra, you need to understand. Marissa has been through something you don't know about." I stared at her. What something? My mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded envelope. "I wasn't supposed to give you this yet." I took it. There was no return address, only my name written across the front in handwriting I recognized immediately. Marissa's handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single ultrasound photograph. I looked at the image, then at my mother. "Why does this say 20 weeks? I asked. My mother went completely silent. And that was when I realized the knife at dinner hadn't been about jealousy at all. I stared at that ultrasound until the black and white image blurred in front of me. 20 weeks. My mind started racing. Marissa had never told me she was pregnant. Nobody had. My mother finally sat down on the curb and covered her face with both hands. "Cendra, please," she whispered. "You were never supposed to find that." I looked at Ryan, and I could see the same confusion on his face. "Find what?" I asked. My mother took a shaky breath and finally told me Marissa had been pregnant months earlier. She had lost the baby at 20 weeks, and after that, something inside her changed. She became obsessed with the idea that the family had abandoned her, while everyone around her kept pretending she was fine. But there was one part my mother refused to explain. Why was she watching Cendra? Ryan asked. My mother looked down. Because she believed your baby was supposed to be hers. I actually laughed, but it came out broken. What does that even mean? My mother didn't answer. She only said, go home tonight. Lock every door. Don't call Marissa. And whatever you do, don't tell her you still have that ultrasound. That warning should have been enough. It wasn't. When Ryan and I got home, I checked every lock twice. Then I noticed something sitting on our front porch. A small pink gift box. No name. No card. Inside was a tiny white baby blanket embroidered with 2 names. My heart stopped when I read them. They were the names Ryan and I had secretly chosen for our baby months earlier. Names we had never told anyone. Not my mother. Not my father. Not even our closest friends. Only Ryan and me. I called the police, but before they arrived, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Marissa. You should stop pretending you don't know. Then another message appeared. Mom already told me everything. I looked at Ryan, and suddenly every strange moment from the past few months felt connected. My mother asking about our doctor. Marissa somehow knowing when I had appointments. The anonymous messages telling me to be careful. The birthday dinner. The knife. None of it had been spontaneous. Someone had been watching us. But the biggest shock came the next morning, when a detective called and asked me to meet him at a storage facility outside Savannah. He said they had found a unit rented under my mother's name. Mrs. Bensley, he said, you need to see what's inside before we can tell you how long this has been happening. The storage unit was colder than I expected. And the second Detective Harris lifted the metal door. I knew my life was about to split into a before and an after. There was a crib inside. Not an ordinary crib, but the exact model Ryan and I had been planning to buy. Beside it sat a double stroller, unopened baby bottles, diapers, blankets, and a rocking chair. On the wall were photographs of our house, our driveway, my car, and even pictures of me leaving the hospital after prenatal appointments. I felt my knees weaken. Who took these? I whispered. Detective Harris didn't answer. He walked to a folding table and pointed at a stack of papers. My old work schedule was there. My doctor's appointment dates were highlighted. Even the names Ryan and I had chosen for our baby were written across a printed nursery plan. Then I saw the handwriting. It was my mother's. She was planning a nursery? I asked. Harris nodded slowly. Looks like more than that. He handed me another folder. Inside were copies of emails between my mother and Marissa. The first message was dated 8 months earlier. My mother had written, Cendra doesn't deserve what she has. Marissa needs this more. The next email made my stomach twist. It said, once the baby arrives, we'll convince her she's overwhelmed. She'll need help, and you'll already have everything ready. I couldn't breathe. They weren't planning to hurt me. They were planning to take control of my child. Ryan stepped beside me, read the messages, and went completely silent. Then Detective Harris showed us something even worse. A legal document had already been prepared. It was a temporary guardianship agreement with my mother's name listed as guardian and Marissa listed as the person who would care for the baby. The document was dated 3 months before the knife incident. Suddenly, everything made sense. The knife wasn't an emotional explosion. It was a warning. The ultrasound wasn't just a secret. It was proof that my mother and sister had been tracking my pregnancy from the beginning. And the sentence Marissa screamed that night came back to me with a completely different meaning. Everything is mine. She hadn't been talking about money. She had been talking about my life. 9 months later, my daughter was born healthy, and the court hearing finally arrived. My mother walked in believing she could still explain everything away as family concern. Marissa came with a lawyer, wearing the same calm smile she'd had before the knife. But this time, I wasn't standing there alone. Detective Harris had the storage unit photographs. Ryan had every message. The court had the guardianship document. And I had the one thing they never expected me to have, the truth. When the judge finished reading the evidence, she looked directly at my mother and said, "You didn't protect your daughter. You planned around her." My mother broke down. Marissa stared at the floor. And for the first time in my life, nobody asked me to keep the peace. I walked out of that courtroom holding my daughter's hand, knowing something I wish I'd understood years earlier. Family isn't the people who demand access to your life. Family is the people who make you feel safe inside it.